Hello and welcome to another Igloo imaging tutorial. This one is on a 3D glossy Yin Yang symbol. Along the way you'll learn how to do a flat Yin Yang if that's going to help you with any of your work, and then we'll learn how to do this metallic looking version and then a 3D embossed version and drop shadows as well. Basically we're going to be using black and white throughout this, so there aren't any special colours you really need to add to it. If you want to follow along, the artboard's 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels high. We've got a background gradient which you can just draw a rectangle over the shape. If I just zoom out. So the background rectangle, if you go up to rectangle tool and drag from one corner to the other, and the gradient on this is only very slight. So if we have a look here over at gradients, if you can't see gradients or any of the things I mentioned along the way, like align, pathfinder, that kind of thing, you're going to want to go up to Windows and turn those on. So you've got swatches, navigator, pathfinder, gradients. Also under view, you want smart guides and snap to point. That's just going to make it easier to navigate. So this background gradient here, on one side it's white and on the other side it's only 20% grey. And the location of that slider is around 85–86%. And if you click the rectangle and I just click gradient here, you can see it's from top to bottom. So the grey's at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and unlock that. Just Command 2 is to lock it. And I'm going to get started on a new artboard. The background here, these sort of metallic bevels of a sort of coin, if you like, consists of 3 circles. The first circle, if you go up to the ellipse tool, shortcut's L, and you're going to click and drag a circle out. Now the gradient on that circle is a linear gradient, which means it goes from one side to the other rather than a radial gradient which comes from the center outwards. So you've got, on one side you've got a 80% black, on the other you've got a 90% black, and in the middle you've got a white. So that's what your gradient slider should look like. And once, if I press gradient there, you can see there. So that's the 80, that's the white, and that's the 90%. And those are where your locations are. So if you get something that looks like that, then that's a good start. What you can do then is, if I drag this one over, we'll see there's not much difference in this one. So we're going to press Command C, Command Shift V, which copy and paste this one in place, exactly in place. And when we can just grab a corner anchor point and hold Alt and Shift and just make it ever so slightly smaller. Not too much smaller. We just want this first one to be quite a small one. And then we can just rotate it round like this one says, so it looks a bit like that. So I can then bin that one. These are just my references. This third circle has got some reflection areas on. So what I'm going to do is just drag this over. We'll drag it, put it in the front, and we can see it, again, it's not too much smaller than the one we did. So if you look at the original, there's the outside one, there's the next one, and then this one we're doing next. So again, we're going to Command C, Command Shift V, which is paste in place, and we're going to shrink this down another step. And we're going to spin it so the darkest bit is down here. We've got that white line across the middle. Then these little reflective bits, if I just grab one of these and pull it over the dark background, all it is if I draw a circle, let's make it yellow to start with. I draw a circle with the radial tool, and then I go over to gradient, hit gradient, and I want my gradient to be white and white, but the opacity on this right one is 0 and the opacity on the left one is 80, and my location for the slider is around 35%. And once I've got that, that means when I put it over something, it goes from a white reflection in the middle to you not being able to see it on the edge. So once you've got that, you can then just grab one of the anchor points and pop it over somewhere that is light. So on this one here, we're going to look at this white area here, and that just acts as like a lens flare reflection sort of thing. But for now, we're going to leave those off. We can add those on at the end. So if you create one and just leave it to one side, we'll come back to it. So let's get rid of that. The next is the Yin Yang sign. Very, very easy to do. You're going to go up to the ellipse tool, click Shift and Alt, and drag out a circle. And we're going to make the fill color nothing and the outline stroke black. And the stroke weight here is going to be around, let's do 12 pixels. So once we've got that circle, we're going to Command C, Command Shift V, which is copy and paste in place. And I'm going to grab this bottom anchor point and hold Shift. And then I'm going to drag it up until it snaps into that middle center point. Once I've done that, I'm going to press Alt until you see a double cursor. I'm going to click and drag and hold Shift and drag this one until it snaps down to the bottom. Now once I've got that, we can do the smaller circles. And you can decide how big or small you want your center yin yang dots to be. So Command C, Command Shift V, and then Shift and Alt, and drag those down to about there. Now I'm just going to do a black fill on these so they don't have any strokes. I'm going to then press Alt till I see those double cursors and click Shift and drag up there. So now if I press V and select these shapes here, the three circles, I can go to the shape builder tool, and essentially we want to make this section and this section now, and super easy, we just drag across those two there and drag across those two there. So if you are wanting just to make a flat yin yang, then this is a super quick method to do it. And that's it, you've got yourself a flat yin yang. You can add some shadows and anything else, but that method there is the fastest way to draw yin yang. You can see on this one here I've got a slight grey gradient, so we're just going to add our shape here. I'm going to color drop that one there. So it's done it in the wrong way around. So I'm going to press the gradient button and just drag it from the top to the bottom there. And the gradient there is a very simple white to around 25% black. So it's not much, but it's just to give it a little bit more depth. So once we've got that, we're then going to go on to doing the buttons that look like this. So if you can see, I've got one of the discs, the metallic looking discs from over here. So if I just get this one and press I and just click that, it's going to color drop that one there. I need to make these a little bit bigger. I made them a bit small, I think. I'm going to delete that one. And then I can rotate it just so it's off center. I can Command C, Command Shift V, shrink it down a little bit. And I'm going to make this one the black radial on this gradient. So instead of the linear type, it's a radial gradient. You can see that just here. And we've got white to black. And once you've got that there, you can see these shapes here that I've put in. One's that reflection tool that we did before, so we can grab one of these. If we do the Alt, click and drag, and Command Shift right square bracket, that sends it to front. I can just shrink this down here and rotate it round, and that can be one of my reflections just on the black. We can press ellipse and just click and drag another one, and that's going to copy that one exactly. But this time around we want a linear gradient across it, so we're going to switch it to a linear gradient, and we also want to squash it down to being an ellipse. So you can just play around with it until you get that sort of shape there, that ellipse, and then drag it over our circle over here. It just gives a little bit more depth. This is a crescent shape. Again, it's the same sort of white gradient we're going to use. So I'm going to select the circle here, Command C, Command Shift V, and then I'm going to press V and just drag a duplicate copy over there. And from there, just make that a bit bigger and move it round until I get this sort of ellipse shape here. So press V, select this one, hold Shift, select the top one, and then under Pathfinder, you want a minus front. And that's going to leave us with that ellipse shape. If I press I, which is color drop, and just color drop that one, or color drop the radial actually, we can then press gradient, and we can move our gradient. Oop. We can move this around. Can't get hold of it. There we go. Move that there. That looks about right. Okay, so once we've got that done, I think if I actually just lock these down, I press Command 2, I think my inner circle isn't quite big enough. So I'm going to select everything here and press Shift and click off that outer circle, and then just Shift and Alt and drag it out a little bit. That looks a bit better. So then select everything here, press Alt until you see the double cursors, click, drag, hold Shift, and drag it to so it intersects. And then the only difference on this one is we're going to make it white. So the gradient there, the radial gradient, goes from white to a 70% grey, and our location of our gradient's around 77%. Now we have got an extra circle here, which if you look is just a black to a 0% opacity, and that all that does is if I drag this over here, in fact I'll do a new one for you. So we'll select this one, Command C, Command Shift V, drag it out, make it nice and big, and I'm going to color drop that there. And the gradient in this case is a black and a black, but the right hand one is 0% opacity and the left hand one is 80% opacity. And what that does, it looks like the button's sort of just pushed in a little bit. So I need to send this back a few. So if we press Command and the left square bracket a few times until it goes behind this button, you then click again, select it, hold Alt until you see the double cursors, click, hold Shift, drag it till it intersects this one, and we're going to change the colors to white. So we can just drag the whites onto the top of these here, and we might need to bring it forward one. There we go. So if I get rid of these now, we've done the buttons. The next thing we do is this sort of metallic outline of this here. Now this can be done in a few ways. If we unlock these shapes here, if you select everything with V and just click the padlocks, we can select that one and hold Shift and select that one. We can Command C, Command Shift V, and we can get rid of the fill color. So now what we're left with is just the Yin Yang shape. And on this one, I'm just going to check the stroke weight and make sure it is both 11. There we go. So once that's 11, if you can see, if you want a slightly thicker outline, you can do that, but I'm just going with 11. So I'm going to go up to Object and Expand, click OK, and then we're going to unite. And once I've united that, you can see that that's my completed shape. And then I can just press I and color drop this one here. Now this gradient is slightly more complex. We've got a couple of grays in here, 80%, 70%, and 90%, and then a couple of whites in between them. And you can just move them around. What you're aiming for is to make it look like it's got a few rays of light bouncing off things here. And once I've done that, you can see there's a slight black outline, and that's coming from these shapes which have still got black strokes. So we can just select those black strokes and get rid of those. So now we've got a decent looking shape there. From that point, we can select the whole thing and press Command G, which is grouping it, and we can drag it over onto our shape here. And it's not quite aligned, so if I just select everything with V, go up to Align, and you want to align horizontal and align vertical. And that looks fairly good. We seem to have it seems to be a bit bigger, so we've got a bit of a smaller gap here. So if I just select everything and press Alt and Shift and drag it in a little bit, that looks about right now. So it's quite difficult representing something exactly. So once you've got that, we've got this drop shadow underneath. Again, we just do it with the ellipse tool, click and drag, and the gradient on this one here is it's a 90% black, and the opacity is set to 80, and then we've got a white on this, or a 15% black, and the opacity set to 0. The reason it's a 15% black and not a white is because when we actually put this 20% gradient down here, if you look, if I move this onto something darker, sometimes you get a bit of an outline with it. So depending on what you've set as your background color, you can set it to white, or you can set, you know, a few percentage of the black in there. It just makes a slight difference sometimes. So we can get rid of that. We can add a few of our reflections. So if I just Alt and click these, in fact, we're going to bring them to the front. We're going to press Command, Shift, and right square bracket. So that's brought them right to the front. And then we can just put them around on the white bits and rotate them around. Maybe pop one over there, rotate it a bit, pop one there, drag one over there, and that's about it really. So from there, to make it look like it's 3D beveled and coming out from a coin, the first thing we're going to do is take the background circle, this one, the outside circle, the very outside one. So just select that with V and press Alt, click and drag. So with that one selected, we're then just going to turn it to, any color you want. It doesn't matter for now. I'm just going to hit yellow because that was on my swatches. And we're going to go up to Effects, 3D, Extrude and Bevel. Now with this, you can play around with whichever way you want it to look, as long as you've got preview on. But if we go for something around there, you can just, there are some presets as well, but just play around with it until you like the look of it. If you want the exact numbers, it's 5, -50, 10. And the extrude depth, again, it's up to you, but something around the 100 mark is probably going to be about right. Let's stick it to 100. And then perspective, again, play around with it. All this does is drag in the end so it doesn't look quite as straight. So something around 25, 26% on the perspective. You want plastic shading, no bevels. Click OK. Once you've got that, you can go up to Object and Expand. And you can press Command Shift G, which ungroups it. You actually need to do that twice, Command Shift G, and then it'll ungroup that. So we will be getting rid of this, but we're just for now going to use it as a location tool when we copy and paste this one. If you select all this shape and just shift click that front yellow disc, then that's selected everything there. If you look and we press Command Y, you can see it's a load of different shapes. So what we want to do is unite all those shapes under Pathfinder, make it one solid shape. And we're going to color drop with the eyedropper tool, that double gradient that we got, the double white one. And we're going to drag it from top to bottom there. So that gives us 2 white reflections going across it. So this is starting to get there now. We're going to move this one across. We're going to select everything here, and we're going to just shift click the shadow and then press Command G. So now this is all grouped together. So we're going to press Alt, so you get your double cursor. Once it's selected, click and drag it over the top of this one. Now this is where it's a bit of sort of messing around really. So you want to make sure it's aligned with the top, and then you're just going to start squashing it with the side corners. Squashing it, rotating it, moving it in a bit until we can't see any more yellow. That's why it's kind of good to have a sort of contrasting color. We might need to make it a bit fatter, bring that in a bit, and eventually you'll get it lined up exactly where it should be. Just press R if you want to do it manually. So that's the top bit done. We can just drag this down a tiny bit. And there we go. We've kind of got rid of all the yellow there. Tiny bit left up there. Perfect. And if you just use V and select these shapes here and shift click the grouped one, you'll then select the yellow one underneath, and you can just delete that one away. So once you've got that, you can use this shadow over here. So again, just Alt, click and Shift, and you can move it around if you want, make it a little bit thinner. do that. You can grab the whole shape, press Command G, and then it's all grouped together. And if you want to just rotate it back a bit, maybe so it doesn't look quite as steep, you can do that. And that is how to make 3D glossy yin yang shapes. I hope that was useful. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again next time.